So a very repetitive question we get, especially since we sell so many spot hogs, is how do I sight one in? Well, they're relatively simple, but if you've never shot out to 60 yards before, you may have some issues because that's what it takes, 20 and 60. Now, I've used that term a lot, but I've never actually shown people what that means. So whenever you buy your spot hog, doesn't matter if it's a fast eddy, doesn't matter if it's a boonie, doesn't matter if it's a horizontal, vertical pin, it doesn't matter because you're getting, as long as it's not the grinder. This is just for any of the slider sights that Spot Hog has to offer. You're gonna get a packet of sight tapes with it, and in that packet of sight tapes, you will have 3 calibration tapes. Don't lose those. So the first step before you ever mess with the calibration tapes or anything is to find your 20. But even before then, you need to figure out which pin you want to be your dominant pin. This is a Fast Eddy double pin, and this is a which way am I going? Vertical. Get the two mixed up and they're very important. So this is a double pin vertical, so I want my top pin to be my dominant pin. And when I say dominant pin, what I'm talking about is if I've got this thing dialed up to 20, deer comes out to 25 or 30 or 31, whatever, that's the pin I'm going to use to dial down to that specific yardage in order to make my shot. So step one, find your 20. Like I said, no calibration tape on the dial or anything right now. Obviously, you want to make sure your axis is set on your sight first and foremost. We'll go over that in a different video. But for right now, I'm going to see if I can hit this at 20. I think these are the arrows I was originally using with this bow. I can't rightly remember. I did paper tune and they shot really well out of it. So once again, if you're not 100% sure if your bow's going to hit at 20, start at like 10, 8, 6 yards just so you don't lose any arrows. I'm pretty sure this one's going to be relatively close, but we're about to find out. Facial hair. Okay, so that is not where I was necessarily aiming. Up and down doesn't look bad. Definitely need to give it some clicks to the left. Some people get confused on left and right, up and down when you're sighting in a bow. You follow the arrow. So I was aiming at one of those top right squares right there, but I hit low left. So I'm moving my sight to the left, and I'm going to bring it down just a hair because it's really not that bad. And now I'm going to shoot again. So that was actually exactly where I was aiming, but just for peace of mind, just like my birth, accidents happen all the time, so I want to shoot that same square one more time just to make sure we're consistent. Alright, so that one was a little low left, but once again, that could have been me. So now we're going to go one of the top left squares. So I got 2 shots that are left, so I'm going to bring my sight over to the left a little bit more. That's why we wanted to check and see what the consistency was going to be. Because a lot of times people say, bullseye, now let's go on to the next step. Well, now you might want to put at least 1, if not 2 more in that same spot before you give yourself that confidence in order to back up to the next yardage. Alright, so that wasn't too terrible. I'm going to go ahead and pull those. Oh, by the way, I usually recommend 4 or 5 arrows to sight in because I know it's more pulling, but it forces you to give yourself a break. A lot of people will have a stack of arrows, which hats off to you if you got it like that. You want to buy 20 arrows and sit there and shoot, shoot, shoot. Well, then you're not forcing yourself to take a break because the more you shoot, the more fatigued you get, the less consistent of a shooter you are. So first shot, I was aiming for this little starfish over here, as I call it, and the arrow went over here. Second shot, I was actually aiming for this square and hit it. Third shot, it was a little low left, made an adjustment. And then fourth shot was a little off from the square I was wanting to hit right here. And then my last shot actually went where I wanted it to. So I'm going to pull these, go back to 20, and shoot at 20 one more time because I want at least 2 of them stacked in the same square that I'm aiming at before I move on to the next yardage. One of the top right squares, I don't know how to give y'all exact directions on it. Alright, that's pretty good. That's the square I was going for. Still just maybe a little high right, but I'm actually not overly mad at that because I tend to hold my pin a little low on target. So I'm going to leave that right there. And keep in mind, once we figure out the sight tape, you might need to go 1 higher or 1 lower as far as feet per second goes once you get it on there. But this is a phenomenal starting point, to say the least. And most of the time when I do this with the Spot Hog tapes, it is usually dead nuts. Slow-mo. So now that we found our 20 on our sight, we're going to go to our calibration tape, which already has a 20 mark on there. Now the tricky part is getting your top indicator, or at least in my case, since I'm using my top pin as my dominant pin, but getting my top indicator to line up perfectly with it. So since this is a double pin, it doesn't have a rotating or modular indicators like the boonies do or the triple stacks. So I got to make sure I get it just right. Now keep in mind this process still works for those sights. It is just a little bit easier on the boonies and the triple stacks because the indicators actually slide. The 2-pin does not. So actually what I'm going to do, also life hack for cutting your sight tapes off the paper. So the Spothogs aren't pre-cut yet, which Chris, we need to work on that. You can get like you can go steal your wife's little paper cutter, little baby paper cutter. It works perfectly. So we want to get this 20 right up underneath that top indicator so that it's telling us the truth. Just like that. Let's stick it down and then roll it. You want to keep a little bit of tension on the tag end of your calibration tape so it goes straight and flush all the way around the wheel. And that should be good enough for government work. Calibration tape is installed. Now's the part where you would start around 30 and walk it back while dialing down your indicator, or excuse me, dialing your knob down for more distance as you walk further back. I usually recommend doing it in 10-yard increments, especially if you've never done it before. I've done this quite a few times with this one, but just for video's sake, I'm going to start at about 40 and go for the big shot target. And keep in mind, you're not necessarily trying to bullseye it until you're actually back at 60 yards. You're just trying to hit the target. So I'm gonna sling one at 40, see where I hit on that big shot 30, and then go from there. So that went almost exactly where I wanted it to. It's just a tick low, so I'm gonna go ahead and move my indicator just a little low. And once again, guys, I would recommend doing in 10-yard increments, but I'm going to go ahead and step back to 60 because I kind of already know where it's going to be. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and dial my indicator down some more. Should be right in there. And by the way, depending on how fast your bow is, your indicator may start hitting numbers around that 40-yard mark. Doubtful, but typically 50, and then obviously when you're at 60, it's definitely going to be hitting one of these numbers that's going to tell you which sight tape to put on, but we'll get to that in a second. Ooh, really low. All right, so pretty low on that shot. So we're gonna move it down and shoot again. Ooh, I'm gonna go high. I overcompensated. So that shot was dramatically high. So now we're gonna shoot again. That one looked like it was money. Oh yeah. We put one more in there, and we should be good to go. On to the next step, that is. Alright, looks like we got 2 inside the Pokemon ball that are touching, which is perfect. So now that we found our 20 and our 60, my top indicator has landed on a number 16 sight tape. So now what you would do is go to that packet of sight tape that the extended range tapes was on top of, find number 16, cut it out, and then dial your sight tape back up to 20, and then you're going to put that number 16, or I'm going to put that number 16 sight tape on there with the 20-yard indicator on it, going right up underneath my indicator, because now we've moved our sight back to 20. That's where we want to start with that particular sight tape on 20 yards. You got to make it all make sense. Finally scrounged around and found the number 16 sight tape. I've got a whole ammo box full of them, and they're not organized whatsoever. But this is a very crucial tip. So I'll do some B-roll or something to where y'all can see it. But so my number 16 sight tape has the 20-yard marks, or 20 and then 10-yard marks on the left-hand side and the right-hand side of the check marks. Don't cut both sides out. These are designed to be for a left or right-handed sight, depending on what you have. We have a right-handed sight, obviously. So I want to keep the numbers on the right-hand side so that my indicator hovers over the check marks. So I'm going to want to cut out all the numbers on the left-hand side just so it will even fit on my wheel. The calibration tape, once again, we've already rolled this back up to 20, and That's going to be our 0 point. And save these calibration tapes. I mean, you can. I've used this one like 3 or 4 times. I mean, yeah, it'll eventually run out of its stickiness, but get all the good you can out of it. Got my little baby adorable paper cutter here. So once again, I want to cut off the numbers, the yardage numbers on the left-hand side. So I'll go right here, right down it. And that is absolutely delicious. So now I want to cut on the outside of the numbers that are on the right side of the check marks. So boom, boom. And that's about as good as you can get, or at least as good as I can get. I'm going to go ahead and slice up some of this excess tape on the bottom side that I don't need. So that is absolutely perfect. Left a little bit of fat on there, but a little fat on a steak's a good thing. Thank you, October Mountain Microvice, for making my life so much easier. So this is kind of the tricky part. Get that 20 mark right up underneath that top indicator, just like so. And I'm kind of anal about my tapes being on perfectly even. So if it's got like a lip or if it's pushing to one side or the other, I've been known to take the whole thing off and redo it. Yep, I'm gonna have to take this one off. It's gonna bug the pits out of me. Didn't scoot it up underneath that indicator enough. There we go. And now, since we know that our 20 is good there, we can go ahead and just roll it the rest of the way on. Just like so. Now I'm going to dial it back to 20. And now we're going to go outside and shoot a bunch of different yardages to see how good I am at my job. So we got a black bear out there at 38. So we're going to go 35, 6, 7, and 8. And see if we did it right. Well, that looked delicious. Let's go for the javelina, next target up. Alright, javelina's dead. We're going to go for the bedded buck and call it a day, I think. 71 yards. I'm good with that. I mean, and for a turkey setup, I mean, 60 would be an absolute max distance for me. And that's if he's strutting and sitting really still. Other than that, 20 to 50, he's definitely dead. Drop a comment below if you think I missed anything. I don't think I did. And once again, this works for your single pin, your double pin, your triple stacks. Doesn't matter what pin configuration, what pin size, any of that on the Spothogg Fast Eddies or the Boonies. Thank y'all for watching, and drop a comment on what y'all want to learn next.